Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Amicable Divorce Network podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Moore-Grant. I'm the founder of the Amicable Divorce Network. And if you've been following us along for season 2 of our podcast, you know that we've been going chapter by chapter through our new book, Divorce Amicably, Your Roadmap to Resolution. And it's probably very hard to believe, but we have reached our final chapter, chapter 80, which is about closure and healing. And it was authored by one of our Canadian members, Suzanne Winlove-Smith, and she is joining us today to talk about her chapter. And it's important to note, if you're watching the video, she's joining us from a boat. Thank you for joining us, Suzanne.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I think it's good to warn people, because if you see me moving up and down and the boat is moving, there's some big swells out here.
Yeah, every now and then I can see a pop of blue in the background where we get to see the ocean. So good for you. I'd be seasick, but she's having a good time out there. So if you're watching the video, that's what is going on. Suzanne, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a longtime family mediator. I've worked in many different court systems with hundreds of families, and I've seen the same thing over and over and over. People coming, looking for help, but actually leaving most of the time in worse condition. So for me, it's really compelled me to try and find solutions. I love systems. I think everyone needs a system. Everyone needs support when they're going through this. No one can possibly go through this time alone. That's one thing I'm sure of. And I think working collaboratively, like what you've created, Tracy, is so important, and it's something that's desperately needed, because people go through so many different types of scenarios, and it's not a one-size-fits-all.
That's right. Well, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it, and we appreciate you being one of our vetted professionals and offering your assistance to people all over the globe. So you work as a mediator, but you have a wider range of skills that you offer as well. Tell us about that.
Well, I've gone through a divorce myself.
Yeah.
I'm also a child of divorce, and I think that's really what compelled me to become a family mediator, knowing that there's a better way. It's really tough on the kids when the parents split. And just because a relationship ends doesn't mean that parents can't be powerful co-parents. They need a way, they need a map, they need a way to get there.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I'm interested in. I'm a bit of an entrepreneur, and I like systems. So I developed a system a long time ago where I take something very complex and I break it down into little micro steps. Because people are so incredibly overwhelmed. They don't know what they need. How are they going to possibly understand something that they've never been through before? They can't.
That's very true. And I think we see that a lot when people are facing divorce, not understanding that they have choices on how to divorce. And so there are choices out there. It can be overwhelming. There's so much information out there, but we hope that we've consolidated a lot of that great information for you, both in the book, Divorce Amicably. All of our professionals are giving advice on how to divorce well, and all of that is mirrored on our website, divorceamicably.com, so you can always head there for more resources as well. Suzanne, you wrote the chapter that sends people on their journey after the divorce on closure and healing. And what made you passionate about writing this chapter?
Well, it's kind of ironic that it is the last chapter of the book, because really it should be the first thing that anyone addresses before they take any action. I kind of have a saying, if you're going to end something, end it well, and be very, very careful, because it's such a hugely emotional time. Unless people deal with those intense emotions, they end up creating all kinds of havoc. People can do things they never thought they could do when they're in this state, because people are actually in a state of trauma. And let's face it, nobody gets married thinking that their relationship is going to end. People have a vision for their life and a vision for their marriage. And in that, they develop an identity that's linked to their partner. So when that relationship ends, it's incredibly painful. It is just, people are off center. They don't know what to expect. Sometimes I say it's almost like being likened to a car crash. You know, there's a car crash, you lose all control. You don't know which way's up. You're just spinning. You no longer have the wheel.
Exactly.
And yeah, you're in a state of trauma.
Yeah. So talking about the trauma, one of the really interesting points that you made in your chapter was about PTSD and also how this emotional pain can really impact people on a physical level, literally a broken heart.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Most people don't realize this, but science shows that the emotional pain from a breakup triggers the exact same area of the brain as a physical injury. So you can physically feel this pain in your body. Now, I always say when people are together, they're in a relationship and they're coupled in, and when it breaks, it's like, ouch.
Yeah.
It's painful. It can be almost like losing a limb.
Yeah.
And you can feel it as physical pain. So that feeling of being physically hurt, it's real.
Yeah.
It's real. And that's what ends up driving people's behavior.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very primal pain as well, and people are making decisions from that place of mind. So I certainly see how you can say this should be chapter 1. So if you haven't read the book yet, read chapter 8 first and then read it last. And you might have a different take on that information, using it as bookends for your journey there. But people aren't in the best place and aren't making, I guess, rational decisions when they're coming from such a place of pain and hurt. How can they deal with that and move forward?
Well, that's a lot, and I'll get into a little bit of that. But I think, there's two types of people. There's the one sometimes that's being left.
Yeah.
And then there's the other one that's doing the leaving. And so sometimes the person that's doing the leaving is so far ahead of their partner, they start making decisions thinking things will just go a certain way.
Yeah.
And it'll go easy. They have no idea how that other partner is going to react.
Yeah.
The other partner can create so many problems for the person looking to move on that is ahead. And that's why we need to deal with care, have the patience that this time deserves. And the biggest thing, Tracy, is getting help.
Yeah.
Because there's so many emotional triggers that happen. And some of those emotional triggers are being ignored, being lied to, feeling replaced, or financially manipulated.
Yeah.
Those can create extreme reactions.
Yeah.
That you can't expect.
And it's really hard to move through your divorce case in the way that we're trying to instruct you to do, which is amicably look at it, very neutrally like a business. Don't get involved in emotional decision making, put the kids first. It's so hard to get to that place when you're still really, really so deeply hurt and in so much pain. And so getting help certainly can give you an outlet, because I've seen sometimes people don't get assistance from a neutral person like a mental health professional. They're maybe getting their help from the internet or from maybe some friends who aren't, really very helpful about helping the person move forward, but sometimes keep them entrenched in those bad feelings.
Yeah, and I see more of that. There's so much bad advice out there.
Yes.
And honestly, people now, even with the internet, they can go down an algorithm and it can kind of feed the pain. And the moment it can feel good to, see all these negative things and talk about what's happened over and over and over. And I think everybody's been around somebody that's gone through something and they can't let it go.
Yeah.
They keep talking about it and talking about it. And it's feeding something. It's keeping them stuck.
Yeah.
So it's really important to recognize your own emotional triggers, and really they're rooted in loss, in pain and fear, because we haven't figured out what our new identity and next steps are.
Yeah.
That's why people get stuck and they ruminate. So I always tell my clients, don't talk to anyone. This is your family matter, and be careful who you talk to, because people love to give bad advice.
I think I deal with that every single day that I'm talking to, a client or somebody that's reached out, and I'm like, that is not accurate, or that is only in the state of North Carolina, something very niche where, I've even had people come in with full agreements that they've negotiated, and I'm like, you can't do any of these things in Georgia, and they've spent so much time on it. So, it really is important. You can really actually save a lot of time and heartache by going to the right people for the right information. And understanding, I think, that your friends and family are going to be fierce advocates for you and on your side. And that can be a great outlet, but sometimes it's not a relationship or conversations that are propelling you forward. Sometimes it's just keeping you in that marination of pain, so to speak.
Yes, unfortunately that's the case.
Yeah.
And most people unfortunately haven't dealt with a lot of the issues in their own lives, and then they're more happy to jump in and give you crappy advice. It gives them a break from the stuff that they're not dealing with.
Right.
So this is where, getting a professional, getting somebody neutral involved that can help you navigate, that's what's going to make all the difference.
Yeah.
Because whether you like it or not, you're in this together with another person, and that's especially true if you have children. It's going to be a long-term relationship.
Yeah. And one of the tips and things that you have people address, you touched on this a little bit, is your identity changing. Going from a we to a me can be very difficult, especially for holidays and special occasions. How should people approach thinking about this relationship transition?
Well, and that's where getting somebody neutral to help support you to go through these transitions, because people will revert back to all of these questions. It's not just about losing a partner. Suddenly are hit with the terrifying questions like spending holidays alone. Not only that, do we have to sell our home? Or I haven't worked in 10 years. How will I survive financially? What will everyone think?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because that can be part of your identity too, is your social circles.
Yeah.
People can find themselves isolated because where they were coupled up socially, all of a sudden they're alone.
Yeah.
They aren't part of that old group. Also, what about my kids? I'm only going to see them half the time. No one is prepared for that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people don't consider those things before they end the relationship.
Yeah. It's a lot, and just your examples that you touched on, housing, finance, parenting, kids, emotional things. I think one thing I always try to convey to anybody that listens to us or reads the book or, even comes to me is that no matter what it is that you're facing through this divorce, no matter what category we're putting it in, housing, emotional, anything, you're not the first person to be approaching this, the only person, you're not the last. So there's often a solution, a method to help you through this difficult time, and just sort of take one bite of the apple at a time. What is most painful to you right now? Is it approaching Christmas and not having the kids on Christmas morning? Let's work on addressing that and not worry about all the other 9 things at once, because that can get very overwhelming.
Yeah, and that's what tends to happen, right? When people go down a rabbit hole, they're so overwhelmed, and that's when we can see intense reactions, right? Like the rates of domestic violence going up over 80%, because people are just scared and they're freaked out. It's too much for your nervous system, and so you need to slow down, because dealing with this loss is not unlike grieving someone who's passed away. It's a death of sorts to that old person, to your dream, to who you thought you were in the relationship, to how you thought your life would look. But you also, you have to allow yourself that process, the grieving process. Because if you don't, you'll suffer. You can suffer needlessly for many years. I know people who, 40 years later, they're still bitter from their divorce. And it's because they didn't process their grief.
Yeah.
They didn't get support to go through this. And let's face it, most people, I deal with incredibly intelligent clients. And they, sometimes believe that they can figure this out.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're the worst.
Yeah.
It's their pride of being able to, accept support. Can change things in ways that they can't imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just so important to think about it as a death. You're going to lose somebody through your life. Maybe, it's a parent as an example, and you deal with that. You accept that it has, happened. You deal with that pain and that grief. A lot of people, because the other spouse is still alive, sometimes they have to see them and their new spouse, and that's constantly in their in their face and in their realm. It makes it very hard for people to process that and move on, and they do stay very stuck in that emotional state. Tips that you give people, for those following along, Suzanne has given a great list of bulleted tips that you can implement to really help move into a positive future. One of them is to identify the root cause of what's triggering you, and do you suggest mental health treatment perhaps would be the best way to do that, or should people handle it in another method?
I think that is really up to the individual and their comfort level. Sometimes people aren't ready to reach out. In fact, Tracy, there's a study out there that says people will suffer with a problem for 5 years before they'll call for help. That's a lot of suffering.
Yeah.
It's because people ruminate and they go through it like a circle, right? Almost like a broken record, and they think they're going to figure it out, but then it just loops right back into what was going on.
Yeah.
And also, those strong emotions like anger and frustration, they carry powerful energy. And so sometimes people suppress them, right? And if you suppress them, they're still there, bubbling under the surface, and they're just waiting for an outlet.
Yeah.
And that can be an opportune moment, right?
Yeah. They're going to pop out somehow.
They're going to pop out somewhere, and it typically won't be good.
Yeah.
So I think becoming aware of that and being conscious about understanding that energy, it's either going to consume you.
Yes.
Or, like, what I like to help my clients do is help them channel it, because it has to go somewhere. Energy can't be destroyed, but it can be channeled, it can be transformed.
Yeah.
So understanding this, we can take back control. We can harness this, actually.
I think of it as like when people have anxiety and you've taken all those ideas and all those feelings, and it's like making your heart rush, and you're just sort of pumping inside. What you're saying is, one of your tips is to transform that energy into action, to take all of that energy that's just marinating inside of you and push it out towards something positive. What are some good tips on how people can transform this, very negative space and energy into something positive?
Well, I think one, challenge the common belief that it takes years to heal, because most people think it can take years to get over a broken heart, and that's kind of where they stay stuck and they feel defeated and they internalize it. But I've seen that you can use that raw emotion from the breakup to propel yourself forward at lightning speed. So it's how we think about it.
Yeah.
I think an important way to think about this time is that it's actually, is it a beginning? It can be a beginning of you coming back to you, to who you truly are. And so if you're going to be angry, use it intelligently, use it wisely. Be angry about the way that you lost pieces of yourself in your relationship. Redefine your strength. And, just as I said earlier, Tracy, about you creating this community of talented professionals, we need a community to be truly strong.
Yeah.
A truly strong person, they aren't someone that goes it alone. A strong person has the courage to ask for help and get the right support.
Yeah.
So, the first thing, if you aren't getting support, you can do when you start feeling the anger, the frustration, that's a trigger. Go do something. Use it selfish. Go cut your grass. Go organize your house. Go clean out your closets.
Yeah.
Do something physical. Go for an intense walk and a workout. And allow yourself to be angry. There's nothing wrong with anger, right? And it is letting that energy have an outlet in these ways. It's like a wave, right? It'll go through you. If you try and repress it or pretend it's not there, that's when it can rear its ugly head.
And sometimes people use substances to numb it, which is obviously a very dangerous road to go down. But if you, take that energy, you're feeling so upset, and you go organize your closet, at the end of it, you're going to have an organized closet. You're going to have a sense of accomplishment, no matter how minor the goal. And when people are looking for building new communities, maybe trying a new activity or something, I always, try to tell my clients, well, sort of gravitate towards the people that make you feel good. Even if it's a new friend you met in an exercise class, such a positive interaction, ask them to go for coffee, as opposed to maybe talking to your sister who just gets you all whipped up, because that's your sister and that's what they do, sort of judge the energy you want to bring into your time as well.
100%.
And to practice self-compassion. Give yourself a break, right?
Absolutely, because if you're going through it as a grieving process, you have to allow yourself the time and space for healing. This stuff, these issues, they didn't just pop up out of nowhere. They've typically gone on for a long time. So now it's just the culmination of whatever the real problem was. So we can, create time and space so we can actually take appropriate action.
Yeah.
Not react. We don't want to be reacting, but we do want to act. So when you're feeling that frustration, when that anger, that's a cue for you to do something, for you to take action.
Yeah.
And maybe it's calling somebody, maybe it's booking for coaching, maybe it's getting on a website, maybe it's making a list. starting to get organized, because it's going to be up to you to build this new life, right? You actually also have an opportunity here. So, having a plan, and I'm a big believer in plans, because a plan is just like a map. Without one, you're going to end up somewhere, but not necessarily where you want to be, and you do not want to leave this to chance, because this is your future life. Right?
And when people articulate a plan, whether it is, I want to move and live in a particular community, I'm going to work in a special field, I want to develop a new hobby or skill, they can reflect back on that and sort of think about their actions. Is what I did today, or that action that I just took, advancing the plan I have for myself, or did I go backwards? And sometimes reflecting upon that is like, that wasn't the best choice. So tomorrow make a better decision and forgive yourself for that bad choice, but then say tomorrow is a new day and we're going to make a choice in a positive direction that advances our goals. Let your children inspire you. How do you suggest that people do that?
Wow, because I have three, they're all adult, fully launched children now. But when I went through my divorce, I was always thinking about my kids. And I thought, what do I want them to remember about this time? And if they were in the same position, how would I want them to behave? As a parent, we're powerful role models. And if I can't figure this out, what's that going to do for my children? Because they're watching me, so I better figure this out.
Yeah.
And what happens a lot of times with parents is they lean too much on their children. They haven't dealt with their own emotions, and then they can be dumping on their kids. They don't even realize they're doing it. They're not doing it intentionally, and they're not doing it to create harm. They're just not aware, and they're not aware of the impact that it has on the child.
Yeah.
Just like me back in the day, why I became a family mediator, I just wanted my parents to get along. And even if you can't get along with the other parent, it doesn't mean you can't respect them. You can't still be friends. You can't model that behavior to your children. You have no idea how much it means to them. And I say every story needs a hero, and maybe that's you. Sometimes we get stuck dealing with a difficult ex. And my ex wasn't easy by any means. So, but I realized it always came back to me because I had a choice. And I either choose to engage into things that are negative or to walk away and create space for myself, because I needed time to figure it out.
And have boundaries. I mean, as you're, walking through this and going from we to me, and the dynamics are changing, sometimes people fall into old patterns, like always doing favors for the other spouse when they maybe don't even have the time or the money or the bandwidth for that, and fall into these old patterns. And so it's important to really reflect on what works for you, maintain those boundaries and goals, and even if your divorce is the most to just show a different front to the kids. Like, anything can go on an email that they don't read, conversations that they don't hear. So keeping a bubble of protection around them is just really ideal.
Yes. And easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, they're doing fine until they see their ex, but their ex did this and this and this, and they said these things, and my child was there, and what am I going to do? Like, I can't just let them go on and say things that aren't true. And I said, well, why not? It doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, the best thing you can do if somebody's coming at you is to walk away. There's something called gray rock. It's like you don't feed any of the energy. That's why no contact works. And sometimes we need to go no contact to create a boundary for ourselves. Yeah. There's a lot of abuse that's out there, and it's not acceptable by any means. So creating that time and space, you're going to teach your child, if they're there witnessing this, that they're going to go, oh my goodness, you mean somebody can attack you and you can just walk away? Yeah, you can. Yeah. You can just walk away. Yeah. That's powerful. And that's modeling behavior to your child about what is and what isn't acceptable, and how to create a boundary, which is powerful.
It is.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Boundaries are perhaps one of the strongest things that you can have in this period of time, and don't be afraid to, really pull back on that contact, talk about only what's necessary in writing, and, then move forward and establish new rules, new things that are going on in a new future. Suzanne, any parting tips for today that you would like to leave our listeners with at the end of their divorce journey?
Yeah, I think I have three things actually.
All right.
I think the first one is when you feel a wave of emotion rising, that's a sign to just stop. Stop and take one deep breath. And in that single moment of a pause, you're going to interrupt the impulse to react. And this is what we need to do, because when you stop reacting, you reclaim your power. That pause, you deserve that. And that's just taking a breath. There's lots of science that shows how our mind will slow down. Then you can start to see things more clearly. The second thing is you channel your energy. So if you're feeling angry, don't just sit in it, right? Because if you sit in it, or some people like to burn somebody with, that's just a waste of good anger, and it'll come back on you. Put on your shoes, go for a power walk. Put on loud music. That's what I used to do, loud music, and clean the house. That's another really rewarding thing to do. Turn that emotional energy into physical action. I always say if we're not physical, we're mental.
That's a good one.
Physical,
Yeah.
it will shift your state immediately. The last one is practicing micro-compassion. So when that critical inner voice starts, or those negative thoughts, or those words, or you're ruminating or replaying something, that's the time to say one kind thing to yourself. Something as simple as, this is hard and I'm doing the best I can. Because pain, that's part of being human.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's no getting out of it. You don't need to feel guilty for struggling, right? Because that's another thing. Like some people just want to fix it immediately.
Right.
It's like, give me the red pill, I'll fix it. This isn't how it's done, right? You can allow for this unfolding to happen, create the time and space. It's like creating the soil for something more beautiful to grow within it, but you need to create that environment.
Yeah. You got to clear those weeds. You got to create fertile soil to have a new life. Suzanne, thank you so much for the chapter that you wrote, all of the beautiful advice that you give to members of the network to help us help our clients better, and for all the work that you do with your clients. I know people listening to this are going to want to reach out to you to work with you. What is the best way for them to reach you?
Well, the best way is the cleandivorce.com. And actually, if you go on that page, happy to schedule a free consultation. I'd love to hear from you. And also, if you're really struggling with that emotional piece, you're not ready to reach out for support, there's a divorce journal on there. And I think it's $10. Go do it. It gives all the practices. It gives you those steps so that you can deal with those emotions and come out on the other side stronger.
I love it. Thank you so much. If you're driving and you couldn't capture that information, save the episode. Suzanne's information will be in the show notes, and you can always find her in our member directory at amicableddivorcenetwork.com, as well as divorceamicably.com. Suzanne, again, thank you so much for being a part of the book and giving such wonderful advice.
Oh, thank you, Tracy. You're doing great work,
Thank
so
you
I
so
really
much.
appreciate it. Yeah, take care.
You too.